Hey, Dozens, we had a wonderful conversation with Spencer Conway, went a little long, and so we actually have some bonus content for you right here, a kind of fun little nerdy insider conversation about pastors' kids, being a pastor's kid, having pastors' kids, but also if you're part of a church, we're going to talk a little bit about how you can like be cool with the kids of your pastors, and so, hey, check it out. So, Spencer, we wanted to have talk about a few different things here. Maybe we'll just take a couple of minutes on this first one. Talk a little bit about growing up as pastors' kids. You grew up as a pastor's kid. I grew up as a pastor's kid. Brent grew up as close to being a pastor's kid as you can without actually technically being like uncle was a pastor, grandfather was a pastor.
Uncles. 3 uncles.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And grew up in a family that did like traveling music ministry and all that kind of stuff.
My parents had a ministry.
Yeah. So we could, kind of share, maybe let's just do this real quickly. Share your experience. Was it good? Was it bad growing up as a pastor's kid? And then from that, what advice would you have for pastors who aren't pastors' kids about, raising pastors' kids? And then what advice would all of us have for churches in terms of how they treat or view or whatever the pastors' kids in their church?
That's good. I had a pretty good experience. I feel like my experience is not parallel with what most stories I hear. I know that there's kind of like a joke about, as a pastor's kid, you're either going to go into the ministry or you're going to go to jail, or something like that. I don't know. For me, I think part of it is because I was the youngest in my family, and so I had like the blessing of like learning through my brother's experiences. And so I think they probably struggled with being a pastor's kids more than me. But for me, I think the hardest season as a pastor's kid was when I was in, I think 11th or 12th grade, and my dad was kind of navigating like some struggles with some people on staff, and some people were leaving the church. And at that point, I was old enough to hear all of the conversations and all of the chatter that was going on. And that has a huge impact as a pastor's kid. When you're planted in a community where, especially for me in that time, you've grown up with people as your Sunday school teachers, your youth leaders, people who have taken care of you, and all of a sudden you're in a situation where, this person's saying this thing about your dad, or that person's saying this thing about your dad, and it's a very. So I would just say, I think what people don't understand in church culture about being a PK is, number one, like the stuff gets back to you a lot of the time. I mean, you can, depending on how old you are, you can shield PKs from like some of the chatter and some of the stuff for a time, but eventually, once you get old enough, like you're gonna hear stuff through the grapevine about what Sister Sue or Brother Bill is saying about your dad, and so that's probably the toughest part for me is that dissonance of like, these people are people that like I'm journeying with in like my church, and we all are trying to do the same thing, but yet they're saying some pretty nasty stuff about my dad. And you see, the tough thing is, it's like your primary view of your parent is behind the scenes,
Right.
And what you see of your parent in the pastoral context is just a sliver.
Right.
But everybody else's primary view of your parent, if they're a pastor, is in front, and they don't get the same picture behind the scenes. So, I think for me, especially in that season that I'm referencing, like everything in me just wanted people to understand who my dad really was.
You don't know him.
You don't know him, and so, as far as like how to help pastors' kids, that's a good question. I kind of feel like I need to think about it a little bit. I'd be interested to hear your perspective growing up as a PK too.
I mean, I grew up as a PK. And it was a great experience. My parents did a really good job keeping as much of the craziness away from me as possible, and I think I made it easy for them by not being very bright. Just being very perceptive and not paying attention. But I remember when there was this shift that when I went to Bible college, and it stopped being about my dad whining to me, and he knew I was old enough to handle it, and it became like, here's some lessons you can learn from of things I've been through. I remember him telling me stories of like, people who, whatever, he was coming up for a vote and, people were voting against him. And I was like, this is not real names. Like Timmy's parents. Yeah. Like Timmy, who's like, I hung out with him all the time. Yeah. Like who you'd take me over and drop me off at his house for a sleepover. Yeah. Like his parents like wanted you to leave. Yeah. And like, he's just like, whatever that is of just that ability. I mean, I'm sure it bothered him, but like that ability to just go like, I will not let this influence this is not my kid's fault and it's not Timmy's fault. So let them have their sleepover. Right. And not like they were always horrible people or whatever, but yeah, just where he'd tell me, remember so-and-so used to go here? Yeah. Well, this is like the crazy drama they caused that like, we had to get lawyers involved and it was like a months long. And like, yeah, like I know, I knew that person. I, spent time with that, but I had no idea that they were that. So like he did I was shielded and we never moved. I mean, we moved when I was 1. I don't remember that. So I don't have the like bouncing around, having to make new friends every 20 minutes thing. And so,
right.
Yeah, no, for me, it was a really positive experience. I would say if I was going to give some advice, some just perspective, I think the thing that the church I grew up in did really well is they just treated me like a normal kid.
Yeah.
There only once in my life did I ever hear something like, well, you're the pastor's kid. And that was from a kid my age, just being an idiot. And so like I got in lots of trouble as a kid with other kids in the church, and we got in trouble, but I didn't get in more trouble because I'm the pastor's kid, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right.
So on the one hand, I would say, I guess in terms of advice, I'd say, treat the pastor's kids just like normal kids. Like don't expect anything more from them. Don't expect them to be some shining example to your kids. Don't be any more shocked when they do something stupid or wrong than you would when any other kid does. That said, I would also say, on the one hand, treat them like normal kids, but also remember they don't have a pastor, particularly in a smaller church. Like, your dad is never your pastor.
Yeah.
It's just not like you can't. They can do what a pastor does functionality wise, but like you can never. This is always when people have a hard time getting their head around this. I say you can never go to as a pastor's kid, you can never go to your dad who's the pastor and say, I'm really struggling with respect to my parents' authority. Can we just have a pastoral conversation about like they just can't be, both of those things. And so if you're in a larger church where maybe there's like a staff of pastors, hopefully there's a youth pastor or a kids pastor, someone there that they connect with, but like know that your kid doesn't have, like you're not, their dad is not their pastor. Their mom can't be their pastor. And so maybe actually don't just treat them normal. Maybe go a little bit out of your way to love on them a little more because they don't necessarily have that from a pastor. And then the other thing I would just tell churches in general, particularly when kids are young, Jesus is an abstract concept. I mean, he's real, but he's an abstract. Like you can't touch him. There's not a room you go into and he's just physically sitting there or whatever. And so for kids, they connect the concrete with the abstract, and the church community is concrete. So however you act towards that kid will shape their perception of what Jesus is like in profound ways. Like you are a surrogate.
Yeah.
You are you're an icon.
Yeah. And I think that's true just in kingdom community in general.
Absolutely. But the odds of a church, if this is not my personal experience, but if a church is going to be a jerk to someone's dad, collectively, or mom, it's more likely to be the pastor than just some rando in the congregation.
Well said.
But it is true. Like I used to say this even when I did baby dedications, I would say, you will, like what we are as a church will be this child's understanding of what Christ is like until pretty far along in their development.
Yeah.
Wow.
So do not screw that up.
That's really good.
It is.
Yeah. I would say probably for pastors who have children who weren't pastors' kids, so some of the things Sarah and I have been talking about is like we really want to be careful about just like even how we talk about the church. Like our kids are still pretty young, but our son Hunter is getting to the point where like his language is really developing. So even already we're like, oh shoot, we got to really be mindful of how we're talking because so much sticks. But I don't want, and I think my parents did a really good job of this. Like, I never had the perception growing up that like the church is like taking my dad away from me. In fact, part of the reason why I didn't have that is because my dad, as much as he was able to, would invite me into stuff. Like I started doing hospital visitations with my dad when I was like 8 years old.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
Do
like
nursing home services?
Oh yeah, for sure.
That was like a normal, like elementary school, normal Sunday afternoon. Go do the nursing home service.
And you know what? It was amazing, and it gave me like a real appreciation for how important my dad's work is. And I remember when I went and did my first hospital visitation a number of years ago, there was a natural like feel for it. And I remember leaving feeling like I was nervous going in, but I remember leaving feeling like, wow, like that felt natural. And it's like, of course it was natural. My dad literally brought me with him to the hospital for years, like all the time.
Like if you grew up in a pizza shop, the first time you make pizza is not going to seem like that big a deal.
Right. Yeah. And so I would say like invite your kids into your world as a pastor as much as is reasonable and appropriate. Obviously there's some stuff that, you know, depending on their age and context, but also just, we all know that church can hurt sometimes. Church can be tough. It's people, but trying to like guard how you talk about if you're in a particularly tough season as a pastor around your child, because I just wouldn't want to. I mean, there will be a time and season where you're able to get into those nuances with your kids, but I just wouldn't want to kind of poison their perspective of Christ's body.
I want to throw one more thing on top of that reminded me of, and then Brent, I want to get your thoughts on this because no one in Atlantic Canada leads a church with more pastors' kids in it than you do, just by virtue of the size of our staff. And so I want to hear your thoughts on this, but there's this passage in the Old Testament talks about don't muzzle the ox while he's treading on the grain. And as much as I agree, like if you do it well, you can do a pretty good job making your family feel like the church doesn't take you away from them. But also I would say to pastors, and I would say pastors do, churches let them do, like let it be a little bit unfair in that pastor's kid's favor.
Yeah.
Like let them be allowed to do stuff that I don't mean like something dangerous or something very like our church had a gym growing up. And like if I wanted to have my birthday party at the gym at the church, I was allowed to do that. And there were things like that just kind of like, yeah, like sometimes dad has a meeting at night, but also if me and my friends want to play badminton, I have a gym. You know, like, or
I call them PK perks.
Totally.
Yeah,
like
there should be some. Yeah.
And there should be. Or like, you know, if churches often when it's like, if they're doing like pastor appreciation or Christmas or whatever, they go out of the way to recognize the pastor's spouse, which is appropriate, but they agreed to this.
Yeah.
The pastor's kid didn't. Like they're just stuck with this. And so all the more, man, like if you do something nice for their kids, and the truth of the matter is if you do something nice for someone's kids, that means as much or more to them than doing something nice for them.
Yeah.
Like if I thought long and hard, I could tell you a couple of things that churches I've served in have done for me to show their appreciation to me, but I could tell you really quickly things people have done for my kids.
My dad started a tradition when he was the pastor at our church of like keeping track every Christmas and every birthday of all of the pastor's kids, and just every year like clockwork, he always got everyone a gift. And it's just a simple thing, but that's even passed on to Pastor Chris now. He does the same thing, and it means a lot.
A lot of our church wouldn't know this, but they buy all the pastors' kids Christmas gifts. Like there's nothing expensive, but one of the things I wanted to make sure with all of our kids was that they feel blessed to be pastors' kids, not burdened by it. And so every Christmas we do a staff party, and you know the kids get, oh, this is for Aiden. And
I love that.
You know, and we wanted to make sure that you know that they didn't get a sour taste in their mouth from.
And it's like a thoughtful gift.
Yeah, we asked the parents.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
What would make them happy?
I loved, like, I've only been here for one Christmas so far, and that was one of those things I love. Like, it's not just like we buy a bunch of chocolate bars and every kid gets one. It's like, it's a thing that specific kid, like it's from whatever, it's from their wish list kind of a thing.
I didn't grow up a pastor's kid. Like I think I got the best of both worlds though, because I did get the ministry taste, because my parents were like, I was around with the gospel airs all over the place and doing ministry, setting up, tearing down, ministering to people, potlucks, all that stuff. And so I got that. But without maybe some of the expectation on a pastor's kid in my own local church. And so I was just a kid that was loved on really well by people. And, you know, so my formation and my connection to, you know, Jesus solidifying was in no way harmed by the people of Olivet Wesleyan Church in Fredericton. Like, it helped me, make that connection. So, but I'm a PF, I'm a pastor father, and my kids would have to answer these questions. But I think from my vantage point, like the things I try to control are, I do really well with one and not as well with the other. But like when it comes to talking out loud about specific stresses that I have, I keep pretty tight-lipped on it. Even, in some ways, even with my wife, unless she really wants to know. But like my mentor told me, I don't dump details of problems on my family that they have no power to solve.
That's wild.
And so I try to hold it as much as I can. Now my wife knows when I just need to talk or whatever, and I will. But my kids don't know any of the real challenges from an organizational standpoint that I've ever dealt with, and nor do they need to. I'm blocking that for them. The only time maybe that they might not know it, but sometimes they might feel it. And so I'm trying to get better and better at just absorbing stress. And I know when I'm not doing well if I'm lashing out at them or something. And as they're getting older, they probably would be able to connect like, oh, he's being a jerk because his job's really hard and therefore I don't like his job or whatever, right? So that kind of stuff. But I would say King's Church, I can't speak for every other church. I've only ever been to this church as far as in a pastoral role. Like the people of King's Church have been phenomenal with my kids, at least. And I think most of the other staff would say the same thing. Like, and the best thing is they do both the most important things really well. They let the kids be normal kids. There's no unfair expectations on them. A lot of them don't even know who the pastor's kids are. Like
that's legitimately, I think, a benefit of a big church.
Yep. Yeah.
And it allows the kid to just be there on their own turn. Like the church that my kids grew up in, there would be times like you'd see people, the penny would drop.
Yeah.
They're like, that kid who looks like you,
that's him,
belongs to you.
Yeah.
Oh, like I've known who that kid is for however long.
Our church has been phenomenal with that, but also very good at just like loving on them, right? Like I remember, when we were launching Charlottetown 5 or 6 years ago, we went up for an interest night and I took my daughter with me, and like sweet lady there just took Ava aside and she's like, here's $20. Go get yourself a cow's ice cream on the way home. That blew her mind.
Go get a single scoop of cow's ice cream on the way home.
She would have been 12 or something at the time, right? $20. So she's like, I got $20, Dad. And like, no other kids are getting blessed like this. Like that stuff goes so far.
Totally.
And I think my kids, again, I think the benefits have far outweighed the burdens of being a pastor's kid, and that's because our people have done so well with it.
And kids aren't stupid for the most part, but like if there are a few things that they go, like my friends at school cannot empathize with this part of my life, but if to your point, like if some of those are like also like my friends at school have never walked into a room and had someone give them $20 because of who their dad is. Yeah. My eldest son at Beulah Camp, he'd come home like an hour and a half late for lunch most every day. We'd be like, oh, are you hungry? He's like, no. It's like, I ate. Where? I don't know. Just some people said, are you Pete Thomas's grandson? Or some people said, like, hey, I know your dad. And they just gave me burgers and hot dogs and ice cream. And like I love that. Yeah.